I saw a quick 3-minute video, which I will link below, and it has sent me on a rabbit hole of trying different epoxy techniques with transparency film, regular old transparency film for copiers. I've tried several different things, but instead of trying to show you everything all at once, I'm going to make a few little videos. And the one I'm going to show you today is a technique where I've printed some images onto transparency film with a laser jet printer, not an inkjet printer, but with a laser jet printer. And I've embedded those in some epoxy and some coasters. Now this started out as a test, but like I said, I kind of got carried away, and I'll show you the ones that I've made so far, and then tell you a couple things about the ones we're gonna do today. These are the first ones that I made that I embedded into these coasters. This again started out as a test, and as you can see, got away from me. I went pretty nuts with this technique and other techniques with just, again, plain old transparency film. So I've made a whole set of these blue bonnets. I made a set from pictures from my phone because the Valentine ones and most of the St. Patrick's Day ones were images that I just kind of printed off the internet for my own personal use. Oh, also, and this flower. But they were images from the internet that I didn't pay for. So, of course, I would never try to sell these. They're just, again, just for personal use. But even that, using someone else's images, just felt a little skeevy. So I moved on to my own images. These are pictures that I took. I thought, well, I'll put my critters in there. So these are just my puppies and my kitties. And like I said, I went a little nuts. I am a little tired of doing coasters, but I am going to do one more round today just to show you how I do this. And these are my sister's puppies and my best friend's puppies. You will see that I have these that I printed, again, with a laser printer, not an inkjet printer. I've printed these, I've cut them out to go in the shapes that I want, but I have them here on a white background. You do want to pay attention to your background colors, because these, you know, look nice on a white, but if I were to try to put these on black, they disappear. And that goes for kind of any image. Just before you decide what background color you're going to use, play around with it, because none of those work on a dark background. You gotta do a light, and it doesn't have to be white, it just needs to be a very pale color, and you want to have an opaque color. So just a couple of tips on that. Another little tip is what I do here is mix up my epoxy. I am going to pour it into my molds and let it sit for about an hour before I come back and lay the transparency film images onto the epoxy. So I am going to do that, and I will be back in an hour or so when my resin is ready, and I will show you how I lay those down without getting a ton of bubbles so that you get a nice result.
A few moments later.
These are ready to go. I've put a little bit of epoxy into each of these molds, and I've waited for about an hour. I use the super clear tabletop 1-to-1 epoxy, and I know with this resin I need to wait about an hour for this process. I still want the resin to be moving just a little bit, but I don't want it to be mushy. You get one shot at putting these down, and that's it. There's really no moving these around. So I generally put down the side that is shiny. I put that face down since that's going to be my front side. I start at one edge, put that down, and then I sort of put it down as if you were putting on kind of like a sticker. You don't want to get any bubbles in here, and you want to keep this edge lifted up so that it's easier to work out any bubbles that happen to get underneath there. But you're just kind of, and you can see your guideline of resin that's stuck to your transfer underneath there. So you're just putting this down, and then your other stick is for holding this up at the end. I find it very difficult to have gloves on and do this. So at this point I don't use gloves. I do have some alcohol wipes sitting by to wipe my hands if I get resin on my hands. And I have gotten a bit of a bubble here, so I'm gonna try to work that out the edge and, you know, pull it away so it doesn't sneak back up under there. This is why you want your resin to still be moving a little bit, but not flowing like crazy. If it's still very moving, your transfer is going to wind up wavy in there, and you really want it to be flat. But you see I've worked the bubble out and it's just sitting there. So I'll give that a minute and very, very carefully with a lighter, not a torch, see if I can pop that out of there. Because you don't want to melt your transfer, your film. And that doesn't want to come out of there, so I'm just going to give it a minute. Maybe try to, there it goes. I was able to smush it out. Now we'll move on to Miss Winnie, who is sitting there with her little pumpkin. And I, of course, am not going to make you watch me do all of these. I'll speed it up for you. But again, we're just going to lay her down, all these, work the bubbles out, and I'll speed it up and we'll move right along. Another little tidbit, you don't really have to worry about scraping these laser printed images off because they're laser printed. They're actually burned into the film. If this was an inkjet printed image, you wouldn't want to be rubbing around on the side that you printed on because it would rub off. So you also want your resin to come up over the edge a little bit to kind of pin it down. That will keep your edges from lifting and letting bubbles get back underneath. There you have it. I will come back in about another hour or so once this resin has had a chance to set up some more, because I want to back all of these with white, and because I'm using a white paste because I want it to be very opaque, that is very heavy and will slip underneath the edges of your picture. I'll show you an example of that, little boo-boo. See, on this one, I didn't wait quite long enough, and that very heavy white resin peeked around the edge there, and got underneath the edge of the transparency film. So just wait another hour, hour and a half to come back to this. Pop the white on the back, or your whatever light opaque color you want that you've tried out, and then we'll come back and demold them in the morning. Another kind of nice thing about this is right now you don't really have to cover these. You don't have to worry about covering them. Once you put your backing on them, you'll want to cover them up with a dust catcher to keep dust from falling in. But right now you really don't have to cover them because obviously the transparency film is covering almost all of your epoxy. And now if you wanted to, of course you could. But I'm lazy, so I'm not going to do that. But I will come back again. I'll come back here in a little while, top these up with white, which I won't bore you with. Y'all know what to do. And then I'll come back in the morning and demold these for you so that you can see how it's gone. With that super clear resin, I am able to demold in 12 hours, so these will be ready to rock and roll tomorrow morning for us. I am back for demolding time. Isn't that everyone's favorite? It's my favorite. Even when you think you know what to expect, sometimes there's a little surprise. So, this is what you get. Backed with that white, you can see looks pretty nice. They turn out nice, and I am really tired of doing coasters. These are going to be fridge magnets instead of coasters. So I'll just zip through these. But it's pretty fun, a pretty reliable way to get a little keepsake of your critter or any picture that you've printed, and you get a pretty reliable result. You get, you know, pretty consistent results once you get your technique down. You don't have any bubbles. I did some of these that I showed you earlier, and ironically one of them has a dog hair underneath. This one does have a little bubble, but that's not the end of the world. Not the worst thing. I'll epoxy a little flower or something on the front of there, and we'll just embellish that, and that's a good way to hide those kind of things. So, Miss Hazel. One more left, the last little one. Oh, and this one has, how funny, her little bubble looks like she's thought Wham didn't break up and got herself a little earring there. She had a flashback. So that's how I do that, and that is the result you're gonna get. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button because I really appreciate that. And thanks for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I am trying that transfer again. Oh my gosh, it worked! I printed it with a different printer on the same kind of paper, and looky there. So I'll be doing that again. How fun. Oh, I said right off. There it goes. Magic. It's like magic. And my image has transferred. I love how these turn out. Rats. Oh goodness. I want to submerge this, but I don't want to get a bubble underneath it or overflow the coaster that I just exactly what I just did. So, I'm just gonna make a mess and go for it here. And we'll have to change my gloves again. And if you do see that there's a bubble trapped underneath, just try to kind of work it out to the edge. Easier said than done, folks. Goodness, that is messy. Try to line it up where I think I want it. I sure hope I put that down with the right side down. I don't think I did. Yeah, I put that wrong side down. Yeah, I put that wrong side down because you want the side you drew on to be down. Now I can't use this. Gosh dog it. I sure wish I had been paying attention. This was a nightmare. The train. Every time.